Hi. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, the capitalists have been on a roll, and they're determined to roll right over us. If language is a virus, they've unleashed a plague. Everywhere you're surrounded by the language of the business class, the wit and the wisdom of entrepreneurs, which is French for parasites. So, is it the end of history? Well, must be the beginning of maths. The end of history is an obvious example of the new confidence of the ruling class, and it's easy to understand the motivation behind the idea. It's like a small child playing a game in the park, and he's 5-0 up, and then he announces, "First up to five's the winner." And then we were all supposed to be middle class. I was so excited when I heard the news. I rushed out and bought a copy of the Financial Times to find out which companies I owned. Imagine my disappointment. The idea that we're all middle class now is a deliberate confusion of changing social habits and real economic power. It may be true that many people enjoy drinking exotic varieties of coffee, but who harvests the coffee beans? Who transports the coffee? Who serves in all the cafes? Naturally, capital's loyal servants within the media all trumpet the line that we're living in a classless society now, and then they go home to their servants. They're not called servants, of course, they're called nannies and au pairs and cleaners and so on. Your class is defined by your relationship to capital. Mine's pretty distant, actually. How's yours? Do you own land? I doubt it. Since land was first settled, and its ownership was settled by violence, then by laws backed up in turn by more violence, not an awful lot of land has really changed hands. In Britain, the same few families own far more earth than they could, and should, be buried under. Do you own your own home, or do you have a mortgage, in which case it's owned by the banks? Do you own a bank by any chance? In Britain, when the nationalised industries were being sold off so ridiculously cheaply, people were encouraged to buy shares in something they previously owned. And the rather amusing catchphrase at the time was a property-owning democracy. Well, the catchphrase should have been, now you see it, now you don't. It was just the old three-card trick, and it wasn't very long at all before the majority of shares were back in the hands of the capitalists. A lot of shares do remain in pension funds, or as the capitalists call them, the petty cash. Now, bosses get to choose their own level of salary and their own level of bonuses, so it's up, up and away for the bosses. Meanwhile, the workers get pay cuts and redundancies. Coincidence or conspiracy? Now, the media like to pretend that the creation of jobs is somehow an act of benevolence. No. Jobs are created purely for profit. One of the inherent tensions and contradictions within capitalism is that you can only generate profits by paying people less than the true value of their labour. No wonder everyone hates the boss, even the self-employed. Now, as the recession begins to hit the West, we're going to see waves of strikes, and then we'll see who drives the trains, who operates the oil rigs, who collects all the rubbish? Yes, it's the working class. Seems we're not all middle class now. Now, in the rush to capitulate to the forces of capital, many groups in the West, including the Greens and many so-called anti-capitalists, all gave up on the idea of class politics. Well, those who do not learn from history will be kept back in class. Not that there is such a thing, of course. Capitalism is not as natural as rain. In fact, it's just a shower of shit. Remember, the main enemy is always at home. Not worried about their mortgage. Bye.